There is a question that has haunted ambitious people for over a century. Why do some people, starting with nothing, no money, no connections, no advantages, manage to build extraordinary wealth, while others, equally intelligent, equally hardworking, spend their entire lives struggling to get ahead? Is it luck? Is it timing? Is it who you know? Or is there something deeper going on, something invisible, something that operates at the level of the mind, long before it ever shows up in a bank account? In 1937, a man named Napoleon Hill published his answer to that question. He had spent 20 years of his life interviewing over 500 of the most successful people in America. People like Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, who was once the richest man in the world. Henry Ford, who revolutionized manufacturing and changed the way humans move. Thomas Edison, who held over 1,000 patents and reshaped civilization with electricity and light. Theodore Roosevelt. These were not ordinary men, and Hill wanted to know what they had in common. What was the invisible thread that connected them all? The book he wrote from those 20 years of research is called Think and Grow Rich. It has sold over 100 million copies. It has been credited by more self-made millionaires as a turning point in their lives than perhaps any other book ever written. And in the next 30 minutes, we are going to go through every major principle, every key idea, and every practical step in a way that is clear, honest, and immediately useful. But before we get into the principles, Hill wants you to understand one foundational idea. One idea that everything else in this book rests on. That idea is this: thoughts are things. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. The thoughts you hold in your mind, consistently, emotionally, and with focus, have a direct influence on the physical reality you create around you. Your outer world is, to a remarkable degree, a reflection of your inner world. And if you want to change the outer world, you have to start by changing the inner one. This is not wishful thinking. Hill is not asking you to sit in a room and imagine money falling from the sky. He is making a far more grounded and practical argument. He is saying that every achievement, every invention, every fortune, every great human creation began as a thought in someone's mind. And the person who learns to direct their thoughts with precision, consistency, and intensity always outperformed the person who let their thoughts be shaped by circumstance, fear, and the opinions of others. With that foundation in place, let us go through the 13 principles that Hill identified as the common factors behind every great success he studied. Principle 1. Desire, the starting point of all achievement. Not a wish, not a hope, not a vague preference for a better life. A burning, obsessive, all-consuming desire. Hill opens the book with the story of Edwin Barnes, a young man who wanted nothing in his life more than to become a business partner of Thomas Edison. He had no money, no education, no connections, and no particular skills. What he had was an idea fixed so firmly in his mind that it became an obsession. He arrived at Edison's laboratory in New Jersey, having traveled by freight train because he could not afford a ticket, and told Edison he was there to go into business with him. Edison later said that something in Barnes's eyes told him the man was determined to get what he came for. Barnes did not get a partnership that day. He got a job sweeping floors, but he never lost the desire. He kept it burning. He waited, he watched, and years later, when Edison developed a new product called the Ediphone and could not get his own salesman excited about it, Barnes saw his opportunity. He proposed a plan to sell it. Edison gave him a chance. Barnes sold it so effectively that Edison gave him the exclusive rights to distribute the product across the United States. Edwin Barnes became a wealthy man, and it all started with a desire so intense it could not be ignored. Hill gives 6 precise steps for transforming desire into its physical equivalent. Number 1, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. Not a vague amount, a specific number. Number 2, Determine exactly what you intend to give in return for that money. There is no such thing as something for nothing. Number 3, establish a definite date by which you intend to have that money. Number 4, create a definite plan and begin at once, whether you feel ready or not. Number 5, write out a clear, concise statement of all 4 of the above: the amount, what you will give, the date, and the plan. Number 6, read that statement aloud, twice daily. Once before you go to sleep, once when you wake up. And, as you read it, see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of what you desire. This last step is where many people get uncomfortable. It feels strange to say things that are not yet true. But Hill argues that this practice is not about lying to yourself. It is about programming your subconscious mind to begin working on the problem continuously, even while you sleep. We will come back to why that matters when we talk about the subconscious mind. Principle 2. Faith. Hill defines faith as visualization of and belief in the attainment of desire. Faith is the head chemist of the mind. When faith is blended with thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks it up, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to infinite intelligence. Now, you do not have to accept the metaphysical framing to understand what Hill is actually saying. He is saying that belief changes behavior. A person who genuinely believes they will succeed approaches every obstacle differently than a person who secretly doubts they ever will. Belief creates persistence. Belief creates creativity. Belief keeps you moving when every external signal tells you to stop. And here is the critically important point. Hill says faith is a state of mind that can be induced and created through affirmation and autosuggestion. In other words, you do not have to start with faith, you can build it. By repeatedly instructing your subconscious mind with thoughts of courage, confidence, and certainty, you gradually replace the old patterns of doubt and fear with new patterns of belief. This is not self-deception. It is deliberate mental conditioning. And every great athlete, performer, and leader in history has used some version of it. Hill tells the story of a man he calls his imaginary counsel. Every night before sleeping, he would close his eyes and hold an imaginary meeting with 9 historical figures he most admired. Abraham Lincoln, Napoleon Bonaparte, George Washington, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Charles Darwin, among others. He would ask each of them for wisdom related to his current challenges. He would imagine their responses based on everything he knew about their lives and philosophies. He did this for years, and he credited this practice with some of his deepest insights. You might call it visualization, mental simulation, or creative imagination. Hill calls it building faith through the conscious development of your mental environment. Principle 3. Autosuggestion. This is the medium through which an individual may voluntarily feed the subconscious mind thoughts of a creative nature, or by neglect, allow thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into this rich garden of the mind. Autosuggestion is simply the practice of deliberately feeding your mind the thoughts you choose, rather than accepting whatever the environment, the news, or the people around you are feeding it by default. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined and emotionally felt. This is the key. Repetition alone is not enough. When you repeat your written statement of desire, Hill insists you must feel it. You must pour emotion into it, because it is emotion, not mere repetition, that penetrates the subconscious and activates its power. Think about the difference between mechanically repeating a phrase and actually feeling the reality of it in your body. The second one changes you. The first one is just noise. Principle 4. Specialized knowledge. This is where Hill separates himself sharply from the romanticized idea of pure positive thinking. He is brutally clear on this point. General knowledge, no matter how great in quantity or variety, is of little use in the accumulation of money. The world does not pay for what you know. It pays for what you do with what you know, and what you do requires specialized, applied, practical knowledge in a specific field. Henry Ford had almost no formal education. He was famously called ignorant by a Chicago newspaper during a lawsuit, and Ford responded by suing them for libel. During the trial, attorneys tried to embarrass him with basic questions about history and general knowledge. He answered many of them poorly, but then he said something that stopped the room. He pointed to a row of buttons on his desk and said that if he ever needed answers to questions he could not answer himself, all he had to do was press the right button and the right expert would appear. He understood that the most valuable knowledge is not stored in one person's head. It is organized and accessed through teams, systems, and networks. This is what Hill calls the mastermind. We will get to that shortly. But the principle here is this. You do not need to know everything. You need to know your field deeply, know what you do not know, and surround yourself with people who fill the gaps. Seek specialized education, not just formal degrees, but apprenticeships, mentorships, books, courses, direct experience, and observation of people who have already achieved what you want to achieve. Principle 5. Imagination. Hill identifies two forms of imagination. The first is synthetic imagination. This is the ability to arrange old concepts, ideas, and plans into new combinations. It creates nothing original. It works only with the material of experience, education, and observation with which it is fed. Most problem-solving uses synthetic imagination. The second form is creative imagination. This is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received. It is the direct link between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence. It becomes more alert and receptive as it is developed through use. Hill argues that every great fortune, every major invention, every transformative business was born in the imagination before it existed in reality. And the person who consistently exercises their imagination, who spends time in creative thought, who asks, what if, and why not, instead of accepting the world as fixed, will always find opportunities that others walk past without seeing. The practical application of this principle is to regularly set aside time for what Hill calls a burning desire session combined with creative imagination. You sit quietly, hold your definite purpose in mind, and allow your imagination to run freely without the censorship of practicality. Many of the ideas that emerge will be useless, but some will not. And those few ideas, combined with action, are where fortunes are born. Principle 6. Organized planning. Desire and faith and imagination are essential, but they are not sufficient. At some point, the invisible must become visible. The thought must become a plan, and the plan must become action. Hill is very specific about this. He says no man accumulates a great fortune without first creating a definite, practical plan, and then translating that plan into action. Not a vague intention, a written, specific, time-bound plan. He also acknowledges something that most motivational books skip over entirely. Most plans fail on the first attempt, or the second, or the fifth. The difference between the person who ultimately succeeds and the person who gives up is not the quality of the original plan. It is the willingness to create a new plan when the old one fails. Hill calls this definiteness of decision, backed by definiteness of plans. You decide what you want, you create a plan, you execute it, you fail, you create a better plan, you execute again. You do not change the destination, you change the route. He also introduces the concept of the mastermind alliance here. A mastermind group is a coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people who work toward a definite purpose in a spirit of harmony. Hill believed this was the single most important external factor in every great fortune he studied. No one, not Carnegie, not Ford, not Rockefeller, built their wealth alone. Every one of them had a group of highly capable, aligned, trustworthy people working with them. The mastermind creates a third mind, a collective intelligence that is greater than the sum of its individual parts. When two minds come together in harmony toward a shared purpose, something new is created between them that neither possessed before. The practical step is to identify 2 to 5 people whose knowledge, skills, and character complement your own. Meet regularly, be honest, be generous with what you know, and be equally open to learning from others. The right mastermind group will accelerate your progress more than almost any other single action you can take. Principle 7. Decision. The mastery of procrastination. Hill found that successful people had one habit in common that he considered almost universal. They made decisions quickly, and they changed those decisions slowly, if at all. Unsuccessful people made decisions slowly, if at all, and they changed them quickly and often. This is not about being rash or impulsive. It is about having enough conviction in your direction that you do not spend endless energy revisiting the same choices over and over again. Hill points out that one of the most dangerous habits a person can have is the habit of seeking other people's opinions before making a decision. Not expert counsel, which is valuable and different, but the casual opinion gathering that most people do from friends, family, and anyone who will listen. The problem with this is that most people will give you their fears, not their wisdom. They will project their own limitations onto your ambitions. And if you are not anchored in your own conviction, their doubt will become your doubt. Every major decision in your life should be made on the basis of your own judgment, informed by the counsel of your mastermind, guided by your definite purpose, and backed by your faith in your ability to adjust course if needed. Make the decision, act on it, and adjust as new information arrives. This is not stubbornness. It is efficiency. Indecision is the enemy of achievement. And it is also, Hill argues, one of the primary symptoms of a deeper fear, which we will talk about next. Principle 8. Persistence, the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. Hill calls persistence the essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into its monetary equivalent. Without persistence, none of the other principles matter, because the path from where you are to where you want to be will always contain obstacles, setbacks, delays, failures, and moments of profound doubt. The person who persists through all of those will arrive. The person who does not, will not. Hill tells the story of R.U. Darby, whose uncle was caught by the gold fever during the Great Gold Rush and went west to dig his fortune. He staked a claim and began digging. After weeks of hard labor, he found ore. He brought his nephew Darby out from Maryland to help. They hit a rich vein, borrowed money for equipment, and began processing the ore. Then the vein ran out. They drilled on. Nothing. They hired geologists. Nothing. They finally gave up, sold their equipment to a junkman for a few $100s, and went home in defeat. The junkman hired a mining engineer who said the previous drillers had failed because they did not know about a fault line in the rock. The engineer calculated that the vein would resume just 3 feet from where Darby and his uncle had stopped. 3 feet. The junkman made millions. Darby went on to become one of the most successful insurance salesmen in the country, and he credited his success to one thing. He never allowed anyone to buy back the policy he had just sold them. He learned from his gold mining failure that quitting is almost always premature, and he carried that lesson into every room he ever walked into. Most people are 3 feet from gold when they quit. Hill identifies 4 essential elements of persistence. Number 1, a definite purpose backed by burning desire. Number 2, a definite plan expressed in continuous action. Number 3, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences. Number 4, a friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage you to follow through with both plan and purpose. Principle 9. The power of the mastermind. We touched on this earlier in the context of organized planning, but Hill returns to it here as a standalone principle. because he considers it that important. He defines it again with precision. The coordination of knowledge and effort of two or more people who work toward a definite purpose in a spirit of harmony. The two key words are harmony and purpose. A group of people arguing over direction is not a mastermind. A group of people who have each other's genuine best interests at heart, who are aligned on a shared goal, and who bring different strengths to the table, that is a mastermind. And Hill says there has never been a great fortune built without one. Principle 10. The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. This is one of the most misunderstood and often skipped chapters in the book, but it is one of the most fascinating. Hill is not being crude or reductive. He is making a very specific psychological observation. Sexual energy is, according to Hill, the most powerful motivating force available to the human mind. It drives creativity, persistence, charisma, and ambition at a biological level. The key word is transmutation. To transmute means to change or transfer one element, force, or energy into another. Hill is saying that the same intense energy that drives sexual desire can be redirected, channeled, and focused into creative and professional achievement. He observes that the most charismatic, magnetic, and productive people he studied across business, art, politics, and science were almost universally people of very high sexual energy. Not people who acted on that energy indiscriminately, but people who had learned, consciously or unconsciously, to channel it into their work. The practical message is this: your emotional intensity is a resource. The feelings of passion, urgency, and deep desire that you experience in your most personal moments can be deliberately redirected toward your most important goals. Creative people, writers, musicians, entrepreneurs, often describe their best work as coming in states of almost physical excitement. That is not coincidence. That is transmutation. Principle 11. The subconscious mind, the connecting link. Your subconscious mind works continuously, 24 hours a day, whether you direct it or not. It is constantly receiving impressions from your conscious thoughts, your emotions, your environment, and your habits, and it is acting on those impressions to shape your behavior, your perceptions, and your opportunities. The critical point is that you can voluntarily plant in your subconscious mind any plan, thought, or purpose that you desire to translate into its physical or monetary equivalent. Hill identifies 7 major positive emotions that you can use to feed the subconscious: desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, romance, and hope. And 7 major negative emotions that it will absorb if you are not careful: fear, jealousy, hatred, revenge, greed, superstition, and anger. The subconscious is not discriminating. It will work with whatever you give it. Feed it positive emotions charged with a definite purpose, and it will work toward that purpose. Feed it fear and doubt, and it will work to manifest those instead. This is why the daily practice of reading your written desire statement with genuine emotion is not a ritual. It is targeted feeding of the most powerful processor you have access to. Principle 12. The brain, a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. Hill was writing decades before neuroscience confirmed many of his intuitions, but his basic insight is striking. He believed that the brain both transmits and receives thought frequencies, and that when a group of minds are brought into harmony around a shared purpose, the collective broadcasting power of that group is amplified dramatically. This is the deeper mechanism behind the mastermind principle. It is also the reason why environment matters so much. The thoughts and emotions of the people around you are constantly influencing your own mental state, for better or worse. Choose your mental environment as deliberately as you choose your physical one. Principle 13. The sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. Hill saves this for last, because he says it cannot be understood until all the other principles have been mastered to some degree. The sixth sense is what he describes as the creative imagination faculty, the receiving set through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. We might call it intuition. We might call it pattern recognition, operating below the level of conscious awareness. Hill calls it the portion of the subconscious mind, which has been referred to as the creative imagination. The most successful people Hill studied described a phenomenon where the right answer to a difficult problem would simply appear in their mind, often during a moment of relaxation or just before sleep, after a sustained period of intense conscious effort. This is the subconscious mind, having been fed with the problem through sustained focused attention, surfacing a solution through the intuitive channel. The practice of going to sleep while focused on a specific question and trusting that the answer will arrive is a technique used by some of the most productive, creative, and analytical minds in history. Now let us step back from the principles for a moment and look at the one chapter in Think and Grow Rich that Hill said is the most important in the entire book. The chapter on the 6 ghosts of fear, because Hill understood that knowing what to do is never enough. The reason most people never apply what they know is not ignorance. It is fear. And fear, unless it is named and confronted directly, will silently undermine every principle we have discussed. Hill identifies 6 basic fears that hold most people back from the life they are capable of living. This is the most destructive of all human fears, Hill says. And it is so pervasive that most people do not even recognize it operating in their lives. It shows up as indifference, hesitation, doubt, worry, overcaution, and procrastination. The person who is afraid of poverty will not take the risks necessary to escape it. They will stay in the safe, familiar, comfortable trap of the rat race, trading security for freedom without ever realizing they made the trade. The second fear is the fear of criticism. This is the one that kills more dreams before they are even born than any other force on earth. It is the fear of what other people will say if you try and fail. It is the fear of being laughed at, judged, or seen as delusional. Hill points out that this fear is heavily promoted by parents, teachers, and society at large, often with the best of intentions. We are taught from childhood to conform, to be realistic, to not get too big for our boots. And the result is a generation of people who are perfectly capable of extraordinary things, but are too afraid of judgment to try. The third fear is the fear of ill health. The fourth is the fear of loss of love. The fifth is the fear of old age. The sixth is the fear of death. Each of these, when allowed to operate unconsciously, drains the energy and focus that could otherwise be directed toward constructive action. Hill's solution is simple but demanding. Name the fear. Write it down. Look at it directly. Ask yourself whether it is based on fact or imagination. And then deliberately replace it with its opposite. Replace the fear of poverty with a burning desire for financial independence. Replace the fear of criticism with a commitment to your own vision, regardless of what others think. He introduces one final concept that ties the entire book together. He calls it the 7th basic evil, more dangerous than all 6 fears combined. Its name is susceptibility to negative influences. This is the habit of allowing other people's fears, doubts, and limitations to enter your mind and take root. The person who is susceptible to negative influences cannot hold a definite purpose for long. Someone will talk them out of it. Someone will plant a doubt. The environment will wear them down. And gradually, without any single catastrophic moment, their dream will shrink to fit the expectations of the people around them. The antidote is what Hill calls a closed mind to all negative and discouraging influences. This does not mean arrogance. It does not mean refusing to hear feedback. It means that your core belief in your purpose is non-negotiable. You can hear criticism, evaluate it honestly, and either use what is useful or discard what is not, without allowing it to extinguish the fire of your desire. Now let us bring it all together, because Think and Grow Rich is not a book about money. It is a book about the relationship between the human mind and human achievement. It is an argument that the invisible precedes the visible. That thought, directed with precision and intensity and persistence, shapes reality in ways that most people never discover because they never try. Hill spent 20 years studying the most successful people of his era, and what he found was not a secret formula that only certain people have access to. He found a set of principles that anyone can apply, starting now, starting with nothing, starting in whatever circumstances they currently find themselves in. The principles are not complicated, but they demand something that is increasingly rare. They demand that you take full, complete, unapologetic responsibility for your own mind, your own thoughts, and your own results. Here is what you take away from this book. Every achievement begins as a thought. The thought must be backed by burning, specific emotional desire. That desire must be planted in the subconscious through daily emotion-charged repetition. It must be translated into a definite plan, written down, and acted on immediately. The plan will fail. You make a better plan and act on it again. You surround yourself with people who amplify your thinking and fill your gaps. You protect your mind fiercely from the 6 fears and from the negative influences of people who have already given up on their own potential. And you persist, not casually, not conveniently, but with the kind of relentless, joyful, obsessive persistence that comes from knowing exactly what you want and why you want it. Napoleon Hill closes his book with a thought so simple, it almost seems too obvious to be profound. He says that whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Not whatever you wish for, not whatever you hope for. Whatever you can both conceive clearly in your imagination and believe completely in your heart. The conceiving is the easy part. The believing is the work. And the achieving is the reward. You now know the principles. You know the habits of thought that separate the people who build extraordinary lives from the people who always meant to, but never quite did. The only question that remains is the same one that faced Edwin Barnes when he stepped off that freight train in New Jersey with no money and no credentials, only an idea he refused to let go of. What are you going to do with what you know? The answer to that question is the beginning of your story.